I met Hannah about 8 years ago at a friend's engagement party. It was one of those packed events in a cramped apartment, music too loud, people shouting over each other, wine glasses in every hand. I was talking to some guys from college when I noticed her across the room. She was standing by the window, laughing with a group of people I didn't recognize. And I mean really laughing, head thrown back, totally unfiltered. There was something magnetic about her in that moment. It wasn't just that she was beautiful, which she was. It was that she seemed completely alive. I don't remember exactly what excuse I used to start talking to her. Something casual. But I do remember how easily we connected. We ended up spending most of the evening chatting on the balcony, oblivious to the noise inside. She told me about her job in retail management, her love of vintage fashion, and the way she hated mornings but loved sunrises. I told her about my work in finance, how I was still figuring things out, and the way I always burned pancakes no matter how hard I tried. She laughed at that. Our first date was 2 days later. I took her to a small Vietnamese place I loved, and she surprised me by knowing exactly what to order, like she'd been there 100 times. We talked for hours. I walked her home that night and knew I wanted to see her again and again after that. 10 months in, we moved in together. It felt fast, but it also felt right. We found a 2-bedroom apartment on the quieter side of the city, with just enough space for her plants and my record collection. We painted the walls ourselves, argued about which mugs to keep, and laughed our way through the chaos of blending two lives into one. It was a real home. Ours. We got married 3 years after we met. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends, simple and meaningful. Her sister, Claire, was the maid of honor, and I still remember the way Hannah looked walking down the aisle, confident, glowing, exactly where she was meant to be. It was one of those days that stays with you in perfect clarity, no matter how much time passes. Now, several years in, we've settled into a solid rhythm. She works full-time managing a clothing boutique, and I've moved into a senior analyst role at my firm. We have our routines: coffee together most mornings, takeout on Thursdays, movie nights on Sundays. It's not glamorous, but it feels real. It feels like a life we built with care, one piece at a time. That's the story of how we began. And back then, everything felt exactly as it should. After the wedding, everything just sort of settled. In a good way. There was a comfort to it, like slipping into a well-worn jacket that fit just right. We spent our first year of marriage in that same apartment, and while it wasn't big or fancy, it felt full. Full of laughter, late-night conversations, mismatched furniture, and plans for the future. We had our routines, and we had our little rituals, things that made our life feel like it was truly ours. Hannah was always the more social one. She had a tight-knit group of friends she'd known since college, and they were over often: wine nights, impromptu brunches, backyard hangouts that stretched long into the evening. I didn't mind. I liked her friends, and I liked how much she lit up around them. She had this way of making every gathering feel like a celebration, even if it was just a Tuesday night with takeout and bad reality TV. I've always been more introverted, more grounded. My job at the firm kept me busy, but I liked what I did. I found satisfaction in solving problems, making things work. Hannah, on the other hand, was all creativity and charisma. Her job managing a boutique wasn't just work for her, it was a passion. She talked about fabrics and store layouts the way some people talk about art. I admired that about her. Still do. We eventually moved out of the apartment and bought a small house about 40 minutes outside the city. Nothing extravagant, just a clean, cozy place with a bit of a yard and enough room to stretch out. I built a small home office. She turned the spare room into what she called her creative nook, a space for sketching, journaling, or just decompressing with music. We planted herbs in the backyard, argued over paint colors, and spent our first summer there hosting barbecues and building IKEA furniture with more frustration than success. Weekends were our time. Saturday mornings at the farmer's market, afternoons watching movies or going for long drives with no destination in mind. We weren't trying to impress anyone. We weren't living a social media highlight reel. It was just life. Simple, steady, ours. Holidays were always a big deal for Hannah. She'd start planning weeks in advance: decorations, menus, even playlists. I'd handle the logistics, she handled the sparkle. It worked. Our families visited often, especially her sister Claire, who'd stop by with a bottle of wine and stay way too late talking about everything and nothing. Claire always had this funny tension around me, playful but a little shy. I chalked it up to her just being awkward around her sister's husband. At the time, I didn't think much of it. We didn't have kids, though it was something we talked about. Not yet was always the phrase. Maybe in a year or two. We were both focused on work, on travel, on enjoying life together before diving into something so big. And to be honest, I was okay with that. I liked where we were. I liked the quiet strength of our partnership, the rhythm we'd found, the way we fit. If someone had asked me back then, I would have said I was lucky. That we both were. Everything felt right. Everything made sense. We had our life, and we were living it together. By the time we reached our 5th wedding anniversary, our life had a certain kind of predictability to it, but not the dull kind. It was the kind of rhythm that comes from knowing someone deeply, trusting the patterns you've built together. Every part of our routine had its own meaning, even if it didn't look like much from the outside. Hannah's days were busier than mine in some ways. The boutique kept her on her feet, always juggling schedules, vendors, new product lines. But she loved it. She had this way of turning even the mundane parts of her job into something creative. I'd come home to find her sketching ideas for displays or flipping through samples of fabric she'd borrowed from work. She had a good eye, she always did. Our house looked like a Pinterest board, but it felt lived in, not staged. That was all her. We made a habit of checking in every evening. No matter how hectic the day had been, we'd sit down, usually in the kitchen, sometimes with a glass of wine, sometimes over leftovers, and just talk. Nothing formal, nothing dramatic. Just checking in. How was your day? What's stressing you out? What's making you happy? I didn't realize how rare that was until I noticed how often friends complained about drifting apart from their partners. We weren't drifting. At least, I didn't think we were. We took a couple of trips every year, short ones, usually. Long weekends to places nearby, lakeside cabins, vineyard tours, little towns with antique shops and quiet restaurants. We talked once about planning something bigger, Italy, maybe, but kept putting it off. Something always came up. Work deadlines, budget concerns, a wedding to attend. But there was always the next trip. The next season. No rush, we said. One of my favorite things was our Sundays. Slow mornings. No alarms. Hannah would wake up first and make coffee, always leaving mine on the nightstand. I'd wake to the sound of her playing music through her phone, usually something indie or soft pop, and the smell of toast or eggs. We'd sit on the back patio, sometimes in total silence, other times chatting about everything from house repairs to random what-if scenarios. Those were the moments that felt most like home to me. She spent a lot of time with her girlfriends, too. They were tight, the kind of group that had decades of inside jokes and group texts that buzzed constantly. I didn't mind. It gave her energy. They had a monthly wine night, and she always came back laughing, cheeks flushed from the wine and the laughter. She told me everything they talked about, at least, she used to, and I liked that she had her own world. We didn't have to do everything together to feel close. Claire, her sister, still came by regularly. She'd help Hannah with outfits or offer advice on new displays for the store. Sometimes she'd stay for dinner, and the three of us would talk for hours. Claire was quieter than Hannah, more reserved. But there was a kindness in her that felt genuine. She and I got along fine, never anything more than that, though she had this way of watching me when she thought I wasn't looking. I assumed it was just how she was. Thoughtful. Observant. Everything in our life felt like it had a place. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. We had built something steady, something I was proud of. I went to bed most nights feeling content, believing I knew who I was lying next to. Looking back, I had no idea how much I didn't know. It started like most things do in a relationship, innocently, casually, over dinner. We were having takeout that night, Thai food, sitting across from each other at the kitchen island like we often did when neither of us felt like setting the table. Hannah was scrolling through something on her phone, laughing softly at a message, then looking at me with that half-playful, half-sincere expression she used whenever she was building up to something. So, the girls and I have been talking, she began, setting her phone down. We're thinking of doing a little getaway next month. Just a week. Somewhere warm. Maybe Mexico, or one of those all-inclusive places with a spa and a beach. I looked up from my plate and nodded. Sounds fun. You haven't had a vacation in a while. She lit up at that. Exactly. I mean, it's been a rough few months at the store, and I think we all need a break. Claire's already found a deal through some travel site. Flights, hotel, the whole thing. It's not crazy expensive, but I'll need a little help to book it. Would that be okay? I didn't even hesitate. I'd always been the one more stable financially. She paid her share of the household expenses, of course, but I handled the bulk of it. Vacations, repairs, date nights, that sort of thing. It wasn't something I held over her. It was just part of how we divided things. Sure, I said, reaching for my wallet. Just tell me how much and when you need it. She smiled and leaned over to kiss my cheek. You're the best. The way she said it felt sweet, familiar, and I believed it. Why wouldn't I? We went over the details later that night. Departure dates, hotel names, a vague plan involving sun, cocktails, and spa days. She showed me photos of the resort. It looked nice. The kind of place you go to turn off your brain and recharge. I was happy she was getting time for herself. Honestly, I even felt a little relieved. She'd been more stressed than usual, I thought. More tired. A break would do her good. Over the next couple of weeks, I watched her get more and more excited. She started shopping online for vacation clothes, tried on swimsuits in front of the mirror, ordered sun hats and sandals. I'd tease her about how much she was packing, and she'd laugh it off. I just like to be prepared. Claire came over more often during that stretch. They'd huddle in the living room going through outfits, sharing drinks, talking about logistics. I stayed out of the way. It was a girl's trip, after all. I didn't want to be the hovering husband. The night before she left, we had a quiet dinner. She was a little distant, not cold, just distracted, preoccupied. I chalked it up to travel nerves. She kissed me goodnight like she always did. Told me she'd text me when they landed. Promised to send pictures. And the next morning, I stood at the curb while she loaded her bag into Claire's car, blew me a kiss, and drove off. I didn't know it then, but that kiss would mark the end of something. I just didn't realize what. Not yet. The first couple of days after Hannah left for her vacation were honestly pretty uneventful. The house was quieter, yes, but not in a bad way. I used the time to catch up on things I'd been putting off, reorganized the garage, watched a few movies she wouldn't have sat through, finally fixed that annoying leaky faucet in the upstairs bathroom. I missed her, sure, but I figured she'd come back rested, tan, and in a much better mood than when she left. She texted me when she landed, just a quick, "Here's safe, resort is beautiful," with a palm tree emoji. I responded, told her to enjoy herself, and left it at that. The next message came a few hours later, a photo of the beach, followed by, "About to hit the spa." I needed this. It made me smile. She deserved the break. But then the text slowed down. By the third day, I realized I was the one initiating most of the conversations. I'd send something, "How's it going?" Or, "Did you guys try that seafood spot you mentioned?" And she'd reply with short answers, sometimes hours later. Not cold exactly, just minimal, detached, like she was too busy to say more than a few words. I told myself it was the time difference, the resort schedule, spotty Wi-Fi. And maybe it was. Still, it felt off. One night, I sent her a good night message. Nothing dramatic, just a "miss you. Hope you're having fun." She didn't respond until the next morning, and when she did, it was a simple "same here. Talk later, busy day ahead." It sat wrong with me, but I let it go. The next day, she sent a picture of the group at dinner, Hannah and 4 of her friends, lined up with cocktails in hand. They all looked happy, tanned, laughing, but I noticed Claire wasn't in the photo, which struck me as odd. Claire was her maid of honor, her closest confidant. They were practically joined at the hip. So I asked where Claire was. Her reply came hours later. She wasn't feeling great, skipped dinner. "We'll probably do something low-key tonight." I believed her. I had no reason not to. But still, that hollow feeling was back. That creeping sense that something wasn't quite right. Not enough to act on. Not even enough to call it a real concern. Just a shift. A quiet, unspoken gap between what I expected and what I was getting. I told myself not to overthink it. People unplug on vacations. They change their rhythm, live in the moment. I wanted to be the kind of husband who supported that, who didn't check in too much, who trusted her to enjoy herself. But that next evening, when I called just to hear her voice, something simple, familiar, she let it ring. No answer. No return call, either. Just a message the next morning. "Sorry, I was at the pool. Must have missed it." And it was then, for the first time, that the thought crossed my mind, not as a belief, not as a suspicion, but as a passing shadow. What if she wasn't alone when I called? I brushed it away. I told myself to stop being ridiculous. But the shadow lingered. By the 5th day of her trip, something had definitely changed, though I still couldn't quite say what. I wasn't pacing the house or checking my phone every 5 minutes. I wasn't angry or panicked, but I was starting to feel disconnected. Like Hannah was somewhere I couldn't quite reach, not just geographically, but emotionally. She still texted. Occasionally. Sometimes just a sun emoji or a photo of a cocktail, sometimes a generic, "Hope your day's good." I replied with casual updates, things I thought she'd want to hear about. I trimmed the hedges. The neighbor's dog got loose again. I cooked a pasta dish that she loved but never quite nailed the way she did. Nothing heavy, just life. But more and more, her responses felt like placeholders. Not rude, just thin. Like she was filling space with words rather than actually talking to me. That Friday evening, I got a message from her well past midnight, just a single sentence, "Exhausted. Tomorrow's gonna be a spa day." I read it 3 times. No, "love you." No, "miss you." No real mention of what she'd been doing that made her so tired. It was such a stark contrast to how we usually communicated, especially when we were apart. I told myself again, this is what vacations are for. To unwind. To disconnect. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't the person she wanted to talk to anymore. And then came the first real moment that made me pause. Claire texted me. It wasn't unusual. We talked before, usually about Hannah or family plans. But she'd never reached out to me directly while on a trip. Her message was brief. "Hey, has Hannah checked in with you? She's been kind of all over the place." I stared at the screen for a few minutes before replying. "Yeah, a little." She said she's tired. "Why?" Claire responded, "Just seemed distracted. Maybe the sun's getting to her. Who knows? Don't worry about it." It felt like a throwaway message, maybe it was. But the timing caught me. That strange absence of Claire in the group photos. The delayed replies. The vague messages. The missed calls. And now Claire saying she seemed distracted. Distracted by what? I went through the motions that weekend, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was outside of something. Like the person I knew so well had entered a different orbit. I told myself not to assume the worst. She had never given me a reason not to trust her. But trust, I realized, is quiet. And when it starts to thin out, you don't notice the silence at first. You notice the noise, the way you fill the space with rationalizations and imagined explanations just to make things feel normal again. I still had no proof. No reason to accuse or confront. But by then, I had started checking the time difference more often. Not because I needed to, but because I wanted to know exactly what hour it was wherever she was. And who she might be with. The last few days of Hannah's trip passed slowly, like the lead up to a storm you can feel in your bones but still can't see. I went through the usual motions, work, errands, even dinner with a friend one night to keep my mind occupied. But there was a low, constant pressure I couldn't shake. A restlessness. I'd find myself glancing at my phone, not because I was expecting anything specific, but because I wanted something from her. A message that sounded like her. A photo with a silly caption. A detail that showed she still thought of me the way I thought of her. Instead, I got silence. Well, almost silence. She texted occasionally, but the messages were clipped. Vague. Beach today. Long day, going to sleep early. The food here is amazing. All delivered like status updates, not conversations. The Hannah I knew would have sent 10 photos of the weird room decor or a long paragraph about a hilarious spa incident. But there was none of that. No warmth. No curiosity. No sign that she missed me. It wasn't just the messages, it was the absence of her voice. Normally, when she traveled, we'd squeeze in a quick call every couple of days. Even if it was just 5 minutes. Even if it was bad timing. But this time? Nothing. I tried calling twice. Once, she didn't pick up. The second time, it rang, then went straight to voicemail. She texted a few hours later, "Sorry, babe, was in the pool. Everything's fine." And that was it. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I wanted to believe this was just how she relaxed, by shutting off, detaching from everything, even me. She always talked about needing space to breathe. Maybe this was that. Maybe I was overthinking. I kept telling myself that. But then I started noticing the small contradictions. She said she was turning in early, yet posted a story 3 hours later from a beachside bar, laughing with a drink in her hand. She told me she was having a quiet day with Claire, but Claire posted a photo tagged at a completely different spot with a different group. It wasn't that she lied, it's that she left out so much. And that silence, that careful vagueness, made everything she did say feel suspicious by default. I didn't want to be the jealous husband. I didn't want to be the guy piecing together social media posts like a detective. But it was hard not to. It felt like I was trying to stay calm in a room where all the windows had been slowly opened without me noticing. The temperature had dropped, but no one else seemed to feel it. Claire didn't text again. That, more than anything, sat with me. I kept wondering what she had meant, and why she hadn't followed up. Had she seen something she didn't want to get involved in? Had she said more than she was supposed to? The questions stacked up, and I had nowhere to put them. The night before Hannah was supposed to come home, I stayed up later than usual. I sat on the back patio with a drink, phone on the table, just staring into the dark. I tried to imagine what things would feel like when she walked through the door. Would she be distant? Would she snap back to herself like nothing had changed? Would I even recognize the version of her that came back? I didn't know the answers, but I felt a shift in my gut, quiet but certain. Something had already changed, and I was about to find out just how much. She was supposed to land at 2:40 p.m. I had planned to pick her up from the airport, like I always did. I even cleaned the car that morning, vacuumed the seats, tossed a bottle of her favorite sparkling water in the cup holder, and queued up a playlist she liked. I told myself this was just me being thoughtful, that things would feel normal once she was back, that we'd talk, laugh, reconnect. But at 11:17 a.m., hours before I ever left the house, everything changed. I was making coffee when I heard my phone buzz on the counter. It was a message from an unknown number, just a text, no name, no context. It read, "You don't know me, but I think you should see this. I'm sorry." Attached was a video file. For a second, I just stared at it. My stomach turned cold. I didn't know why, I hadn't seen it yet, but something inside me already did. I played it. It started in what looked like a hotel room, low lighting, grainy footage, like it had been recorded on someone's phone from behind a slightly open door. And there she was, Hannah, in a robe at first, then without it, laughing, tangled up with someone who wasn't me. Some man I'd never seen before, shirtless, grinning, too comfortable. The sounds, the movements, her voice, it was undeniable. Intimate, familiar, foreign, horrifying. She wasn't just cheating. She was comfortable doing it. Like it wasn't new. Like this had been happening for days. The video ended. I stood there, still holding my coffee cup, hands shaking so badly that I almost dropped it. I played it again, not because I needed confirmation, but because my brain refused to accept what it had seen the first time. But it was all there. Her voice, her laughter, her body, her betrayal. I stared at the message again, heart pounding, and noticed a follow-up text. "She's been with him the whole week. We tried to stop her. I'm sorry again." No name. No further explanation. But it didn't matter. My entire world collapsed in those few sentences. I sat down. I don't know for how long. Hours maybe. The coffee went cold. My hands stopped shaking, but everything inside me felt like it was breaking in slow motion. I kept thinking about the details, the story she'd told me, the excuses, the way she looked at me when she said she was tired or busy or just needed this trip. And all along, she'd been with someone else. In our texts, in our calls. While I was wishing her well, telling her to enjoy herself, she was doing that. There was no confrontation, no explosion. Not yet. Just a silence so loud I could barely breathe. I never drove to the airport. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just sat in that house, watching the shadows shift across the walls, wondering how I had gone from trusting her completely to seeing her as a stranger in less than 5 minutes. And deep down, a different kind of thought started forming. Not just how could she do this to me, but what I was going to do about it. I didn't hear the door open when she came home. I was upstairs, sitting on the edge of the bed, watching the late afternoon light fall through the blinds like nothing in the world had changed. I didn't rush to greet her. I didn't say a word. I listened as she rolled her suitcase across the floor, humming faintly under her breath like someone returning from a carefree weekend. It made my skin crawl. She called my name. I didn't answer. She made her way upstairs, already talking something about the flight being delayed, how exhausting customs was, how we should order something good for dinner. Then she stopped in the doorway when she saw my face. "Hey, you okay?" she asked. I looked at her, really looked at her. The tan lines on her shoulders, the casual lilt in her voice, the fake concern in her eyes. And I realized there was nothing she could say that would make this right. Nothing that would make this make sense. But I didn't shout. I didn't accuse. I didn't say a word. I stood, walked past her, and left her standing there, confused. Or pretending to be. I didn't care. Because I had already decided what I was going to do. Claire had once told me, half drunk at our dining table, 2 years into our marriage, that if Hannah ever screwed things up, she wouldn't let her get away with it. She said it jokingly. She said she hated how Hannah always got what she wanted. And then she added, quietly, that she always thought I deserved better. At the time, I brushed it off. But that night, I called Claire. She answered on the second ring. Her voice was soft, cautious. I didn't waste time. She cheated on me. I have proof. Claire didn't ask for details. She didn't sound surprised. 2 days later, I invited her over. She showed up at the door, quiet and nervous, but she came in. And I told her everything. I showed her the video. She didn't even blink. I always knew she had it in her, she said. Then, without saying another word, she kissed me. It was messy. It was wrong. But it was mine. I didn't plan it. I didn't script it. But when it happened, I didn't stop it. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I loved Claire. But because I needed Hannah to know what it felt like to be gutted. To be erased. We filmed it. Not carefully. Not artistically. Just enough. And then I sent it to her. No caption. No dramatic speech. Just a 2-word message attached to the video. I know. I changed the locks the next morning. Left her suitcase by the door. Her keys deactivated. Her name wiped from every shared account we had. Her text started pouring in an hour later, confused, begging, furious. Then came the voicemails. Then her showing up outside the house, crying, pleading. I never responded. I filed for divorce 2 days after that. The house was in my name. The accounts mostly in mine too. She'd spent the last few years chasing image, ignoring the practical side of life, and now she had nothing left to fall back on. I left her with exactly what she gave me: silence, emptiness, and the realization that the world she built was a lie. I don't know if what I did with Claire was right. I don't know if it fixed anything inside me. But when I sent that video and watched her read the message, something inside me finally settled. She wanted freedom. Now she had it. Alone. The first week after everything happened felt surreal. Not because I missed her strangely, I didn't, but because of how fast life shifted. It was like one chapter had snapped shut mid-sentence, and I was already being handed the pen to start the next one. I moved through the house with a strange kind of clarity, getting rid of things she left behind: clothes, photos, candles, little souvenirs from trips we once took together. Each item gone felt like one less lie living under my roof. I changed my routines. No more cooking for two. No more waiting on a phone that wouldn't ring. I started walking in the mornings, just to breathe fresh air and feel the world again. I worked later, cleaned out old emails, unsubscribed from anything that reminded me of the life we had together. The silence that once unsettled me now felt honest. And I welcomed it. Claire didn't come around again after that night, and that was okay. We didn't speak about what happened. I think we both knew it was a moment, raw and impulsive, but not a future. I didn't need a relationship right away, and she wasn't trying to offer one. She helped me burn it down. That was enough. 2 months later, I met someone new. Her name was Elise. We met at a bookstore, of all places, both reaching for the same novel in the psychology section. We laughed about it, chatted about favorite authors, and ended up having coffee next door. It wasn't electric like it had been with Hannah, not at first, but it was easy, calming, grounded. Elise asked questions and actually listened. She didn't try to dominate the conversation or perform some version of herself. She just showed up as she was. We started seeing each other on weekends, hikes, dinners, the occasional concert. There was no rush, no illusions. I told her I'd been through something ugly, and she didn't flinch. She just nodded and said, "That makes sense. You seem like someone who's still stitching themselves together." And she was right. With her, I could breathe. I didn't feel like I was being tested or measured or manipulated. We talked about small things. And slowly, the small things became big things. I found myself laughing again, sleeping better, forgetting, sometimes, that I'd ever been broken open in the first place. The divorce finalized quietly, without much of a fight. Hannah had no footing, no money, no property, no leverage. She didn't show up to court, just signed what she had to and faded into the background. The last message she ever sent me was a short one. I wish I could undo it. I never replied. Because the truth is, she didn't want me. She wanted the version of me that made her feel comfortable. The stable, quiet man who'd keep the house running while she ran off to chase herself. But when it came time to be accountable, to actually love, actually show up, she chose escape. And she lost everything because of it. Now, I'm not angry. Not anymore. I'm just free. And for the first time in a long time, I like who I'm becoming. It's been almost a year since everything fell apart, or maybe I should say, since the truth finally came into focus. A year since Hannah left for that trip pretending she needed a break, only to break every vow we ever made. A year since I sat on the edge of our bed and realized I didn't recognize the woman I married anymore. And strangely, I feel more grounded now than I ever did during all those years trying to hold something together that was already unraveling. Elise and I are still seeing each other. We're not rushing into anything, not trying to slap labels on what we have. And that's fine by me. After everything I've been through, I've learned to appreciate the quiet spaces between big moments, the calm mornings, the laughter that isn't forced, the way she holds my gaze without looking past me, like she's not waiting for something better to come along. It's peaceful, and I didn't know how much I needed that. I've also started writing again, something I gave up a long time ago when work and marriage consumed my time. Nothing public, just a private journal I keep on my nightstand. Some of the entries are about her, about what happened, about the rage I felt, and the confusion and the endless rewrites I made in my head, trying to figure out if there was something I missed, some signal I failed to read, some clue that would have prepared me. But there wasn't. She was careful and selfish and too skilled at wearing the mask of loyalty. And when she finally took it off, she expected me to forgive the lie underneath it. Instead, I gave her nothing. Not my anger, not my closure, not a place to come crawling back to. And I don't regret that for a second. Sometimes I still see her name pop up on old photos, tagged in posts by friends I haven't spoken to in months. She looks the same, maybe a little thinner, maybe a little more tired. But I don't feel anything when I see her face. No hate, no longing, just a blank space where something used to be. I think that's what real healing looks like, not wiping the past clean, but seeing it clearly and realizing it doesn't own you anymore. To anyone reading this who's been lied to, cheated on, betrayed, know this. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't have to carry their mess like it's yours. You can walk away. You can rebuild. You can forgive yourself for not seeing it sooner. And you can, without apology, choose peace. I did. And life, imperfect and unpredictable as it is, finally feels like mine again.